close quarters. When I was Secretary General and I was appointed minister during the NAC government, Minister of Roads, Public Works and Housing, he came to COMESA to represent Kenya, and at that time I had quality time with him. We had some, walk around, the drive around the city of Lusaka and the rest. So we got to build a rapport of some sort, and we kept that kind of relationship that if I needed to talk to somebody or consult somebody, occasionally I would talk to him. But of course, in 2007 is when I really had a major interaction with him. 2007, I was leading the COMESA delegation to the Kenya elections that were taking place in December of that year. And you know what happened at the end of elections? There was a post-election violence. Actually, at that time, I was seated in the studio. I mean, before the election violence broke out, I was at KICC. When the counting was going on and when Kifuitu was, I thought in a way the Independent Electoral Commission did not handle that election very well because they themselves were making statements which were very clear that all was not well. And some of us were worried. At that time, I decided to go to NTV, and I was with Gishuru. What is her first name? Julie? Julie Gishuru. I was at the studio with him and General Sumbeo, trying to plead with the Electoral Commission because at KICC, I had witnessed people like, Governor James Orengo at that time. Was one of the leaders of ODM, asking that there should be a recount and the rest. And I was trying to, we were announced, and the violence broke out immediately. In fact, I was seated in the studio with Julie when this violence broke out. And so I was with General Sumbeo. So we just made we only made an appeal to say, look, please, hold back your horses. Don't, plunge the country into violence. There will be another opportunity. And even before I could leave the studio, it was difficult even to drive home. Violence was all over. That night I didn't sleep. The one night I never slept even for a wink, because when I saw the kind of violence that was there, I was praying in my heart that Kenya doesn't go the direction many countries have gone in Africa. That violence was all over. That night I didn't sleep. I decided to call President Kaunda. Zambia, I said, President, when I saw the kind of violence that was things are not good in Kenya. And then we worked with the UNDP to facilitate to come. But Kenya was somehow the government was not keen to have the president. But through some persuasion and pressures from many quarters, a number of heads of state and government came in, including, of course, President Mukaba, President Chisano, and President Kaunda. You remember they even traveled within the country to pacify. And behold, lo and behold, that's the time I was vying to be deputy chairperson of the African Union. I was transiting. I was in the process of transiting. And so they managed to put down the violence, and the election was taking place in Addis Ababa in January. And the violence was still going on. In fact, President Mwai Kibaki came for the elections, and they could not even be able to stay for to vote for me. He was kind of forced to rush back because things were really bad in the country. But he left Honorable Wetangula and Honorable Kembe at the desk to vote in their behalf. President Kikwete was the returning officer for the elections. And so immediately we were elected. The first crisis that we were to handle as a new commission was Kenya. And so we came back to Nairobi immediately after elections, started having meetings, starting with the Pentagon group, going to meet them separately, people like Najib Baraga, Joe Nyaga, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi, then at that time, Honorable William Ruto, now our president, and of course, Honorable Raila. And eventually, of course, the African Union appointed Kofi Annan, and we continue to backstop the work of Kofi Annan. And you know what happened at the end, of course, with the part of the Constitution and so forth. Yeah, so that is one really way I got to know him. And of course, during, of course, the process that was led by Kofi Annan, we interacted with them, you know, persuading them to compromise. And during that time, I kept on trying to understand him. Then, of course, at that encounter, and perhaps more intimate one also now, in 2011, Côte d'Ivoire was having a similar challenge, like the one that Kenya's had. And at the commission, we thought of the best person that could go there, who had pathed peace from a deep crisis, was the late Honorable Raila Odinga. So we asked him to go to Côte d'Ivoire. And I remember being asked to come and brief him. And then, of course, even when he came to Addis Ababa to bring the report to the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. And there were some awkward moments because at one time he was there and President Kibaki was there. And so you know what that means when you have two senior politicians from the capital. It was an awkward moment for the African Union. But of course, he was coming in his capacity as representative of on the peace and security. And then, of course, you can't believe it that in 2013, we were here in Kenya to observe the elections of Kenya. I was here with my chairperson, Nkosazana Zuma, and we came in with the leader of the African delegation, who was President Chizano, and we observed that election. At the end of the election, again it appears there was going to be disagreement. So we had to really move in the night to kind of persuade them that don't take the country back to 1998. I mean, 2008. Mm-hmm. Please accept the outcome of the elections. If there is dispute, go to court. And you know what happened when the case went to court, of course. The case didn't succeed. And I remember then Dalmas Otieno coming to me to say, look, what do we do with Honorable Raila? Can he be here without any engagement? Last time you had given him that assignment, you people to be in Côte d'Ivoire. I mean, you should have something. Of course, it took some time for something like that to come. And you know that eventually in 2018, he was given that role of High Representative of the African Union. So I have had all those encounters. But to me, the last one, which was only last week, just before he died, his daughter and me live not too far from each other in some small place in Kajiado. And I was going there and I noticed, I called her to say, hey, are you around? Then she answered and said, no, I'm not here. And unbeknown to me, almost seconds later on, I get a message that former Prime Minister is asking you to go to Siaya for that investment forum that is going to be there to speak at that forum. And that was on a Tuesday. No, on a Friday. Mm. And then on a Tuesday, the office called me to say, yeah, we're organizing for you to travel. I said, no, I'll go there on Friday and come back the same day.
His office?
Yeah, called me on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday to wake up to this news. So in the brief, that's the kind of encounter I've had. But of course, also in the campaigned to be chairperson of the African Union. I was involved, but in a very peripheral manner, because having served there as deputy, I couldn't have been seen to be campaigning very hard, because that would be a minus for him, because people would argue that Kenya was occupying this position and you also want to occupy, at a high level, the same position, kind of. And so, but someone I worked with, as a matter of fact, who was chief of staff with us, was in the campaign. And I also accompanied to Ethiopia when there was that debate, but working from the background. And so I've interacted with him. I know him very well. And he's somebody that who has a large heart. Someone, there's somebody who was giving someone one time saying, sometimes there are people living with pain in their life, but you don't see it on their face. Raila is one such person. If you think of his life from 1982 up to now, he was either in detention, losing election, or sick of some sort. He is really a tenacious person who lived through pain and agony in many aspects of his life. But he walked with grace. Somebody, when you sat together, who was full of history. He knew many things. And I liked what, President Samia said when she sent a message of condolences. She described him as mwanajumuiya wa Africa, a Pan-Africanist. That's how I see him, and you could see his blood as a Pan-Africanist, his passion and his commitment. But I think this country will remember him for two things. First, for multipartyism, and second, for constitutionalism. So that is the man that I knew.
Multipartyism and constitutionalism. In your opening remarks, you said he was a towering figure. In your view, one of the dailies today described him as the president we never had.
Yes.
Was he every inch the statesman?
I mean, in all of us, there are moments that we might slip from here to there, but I would say yes. This is a man, when you look at the big picture, who lived with that vision of seeing a Kenya where there was freedom to speak, freedom to associate, and also to have a country that left no one behind. That philosophy, how you would be able to develop an economy that did not leave anybody behind. So I saw him as a statesperson. In any case, if you look at the larger part of his life, Kenya was larger than him. At the end of the day, he could see that it is better for the country to remain and be peaceful than for him to be able to assume the presidency. And that is the person I saw in him.
Would you say perhaps he was African first and Kenyan second? And I ask that because, of the remarks you made reference to by Samia Suluhu Hassan as mwanajumuiya.
For me, I always say, perhaps he belongs to the same, I belong to the same group as he is. I always call myself a Pan-Africanist of Kenyan origin. So I always see myself as an African first, of Kenyan origin. And that's how he was.
That's how he carried it.
And that's our affinity.
So you talked about how, the 1982 attempted coup, and he went into detention. But had you started with the preferential trade, the Comesa Precasa, PTO, at the time? PTA, yes.
I left in January 1983.
Okay.
So yes, when he was arrested, I was still in government. And in fact, I remember that coup happened on a Saturday to Sunday morning. And immediately we learned that he had been arrested because we had been working together, so we got to know what had happened. Yes, I was in
So at the time you were at the Ministry of Industrialization?
Yes, I was in the ministry.
And he was heading KEBS?
He was a deputy.
Oh, okay, he was deputy at KEBS.
Yes.
So what were your interactions with, what were your impressions of him at that time?
Of course, for departments, I was already senior in the ministry. In fact, By the time I was leaving, I was heading the department that was known as, in the industrial department. And so being in KEPS worked with the Department of Industry a lot. So we got to know each other, senior officers and the rest, through that interaction.
So, what did you call each other?
No. I mean, we didn't know each other. Let me not be seen to be saying that we are friends or something of that nature. I knew him, and perhaps he may not even have known me that much.
All right. So on your screens, we are seeing a little bit of a scuffle between the security forces and members of the public trying to make their way to view the body of Raila Odinga. So those are the pictures on your screen. But earlier we saw the viewing in Bondo. His body moved from Mamboleo, Kisumu to Bondo, and earlier we saw his family, Ida Odinga. We saw Junior, and who placed a hat and a fly whisk, into the casket during the funeral service yesterday. He did make the famous cry, the Joey that his father used to in respect of those who went before him. But we see the security agencies trying to control those who are trying to access the viewing area there. So those are the pictures that are currently on your screen coming out of the Opoda farm in Bondo. Aside from the family which viewed the body there in Bondo, we also saw various political leaders, including the Siaya governor. We saw his Homa Bay counterpart, Gladys Wanga. We saw at least 2 cabinet secretaries, including John Buddy and Opio Wandai. So they preceded now the public viewing in Bondo. So those are the pictures on your screen, trying to contain the situation. Earlier, Ida Odinga also addressed mourners, asking that Raila Odinga be celebrated in peace, and she called for an orderly affair, saying she has attended various funeral ceremonies on the continent of eminent persons, and they were conducted in a dignified manner, and her prayer was that the same would be accorded to Raila Odinga. I see there an appeal that the police handle with a little more care those members of the public looking to view the body of Raila Odinga. Would you, Ambassador, and for those who are joining us, we are joined in studio by Ambassador Erastus Mwencha, who was COMESA Secretary General and also former Deputy Chair of the Africa Union Commission, who worked with Raila Odinga when he was at the Ministry of Industrialization, and also engaged him in his capacity at COMESA at the AU as well, and he's sharing his experiences. Would you equal, given the outpouring that that we were talking about, you mentioned Samia Suluhu Hassan, but a lot of world leaders have sent their condolences or sent representatives, to pass on their messages of condolence. In fact, Ida Odinga talked about receiving a lot of these sorts of messages. So would you equate him to, there are those who are saying he was sort of East Africa's a Mandela figure, let me put it that way?
I would say so. Because he is a man who was able to make peace with those that he contested with. President Daniel Arap Moi, he was detained under his regime, and where he stayed almost 9 years, almost 8 years. And one time, even his mother died. He was not even able to bury her. But he was able to forgive him. And you could see by the time, Moi was dying, there was no bitterness between the two. And equally, even with the Peter, election campaign that was there with him and our president, at the end of the day, he was able to shake hands. And you remember what he did last year, even in the midst of very serious, protest by Gen Zs. So yes, you could say. And the reason why I would equal that, I can't think of any leader in East Africa that has lived that kind of life, unless, you can remind me. But You could even imagine like Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison. When he came out, he even looked for the jailer, and he was able to make peace with those that he suffered under. This is the equivalent of Mandela in many ways, as you rightly mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yesterday we were listening to some of the remarks that were made at the funeral service, and some of what the former President Uhuru Kenyatta said was this gentleman will be remembered for his contribution to respect for human rights, justice, and many have said devolution. They've credited him with that. Was he, in your experience with him, what you would define as a visionary leader? He was clear about where he wanted to see the continent go.
Raila is one person who knew where Kenya had come from, and he was very good in history, by the way. I do remember, if you go back to 1963, when OAU was being established, Kenya was 6 days behind being one of the founders, because Kenya was not free at that time. Kenya gained their independence on 1st June 1963, and that OAU was created 25th May 1963. But his father, Jaramogi, attended on behalf of President Kenyatta, and there was a time when the founders and their families were gathered in Ethiopia. You would see the family of Kwame Nkrumah and him. I mean, you belong to that class. So he's a person who was very clear in history, and not only the history of Kenya, but also history of Africa very well. It took time. But he also understood the dynamics of today. He knew, and you've seen people that he surrounds himself with. They are not necessarily people that come from his tribe or anything. He's a Kenyan. He knows, and he associates himself with many Kenyans. In fact, you would hardly, you remember even in Nairobi, he was the only last person who was able to come from a rural area and contest and win an election in Nairobi, when other people were finding it very difficult to do that. Only Kibaki tried that one time. Kibaki had to run away to Othaya, and even Tom Mboya was starting to find it very difficult in Nairobi. But he managed to unseat
Richard Leakey, I think it was.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And going forward, I mean, if you listen to him, when he was the High Representative of Infrastructure, I interacted with him in that capacity quite a bit too. He was very clear how Africa would develop, how Africa should be able to overcome. He knew the pattern of what colonialism had done and how Africa would overcome it, and the role of infrastructure in the future. So yes, you would call him very much of a visionary.
It was interesting listening to a lot of the speeches he gave, and he always made reference to history, like how we got where we are, even when he was trying to convince the AU summit to vote him in as an AUC chair, and a lot of his speech, was taking people back to where we've come from.
Yes.
That appreciation of where we've come from as a people, as a continent, how much of that do you think shaped his decision making or influenced his decisions?
We're also partly made of history. And as a matter of fact, I go to church on Sabbath, and today's lesson we were reading about memories of grace. It is always good to record your history. It helps. Somebody was just telling us in that regard that there are people who have been able to diarize their life and document it on a day-by-day basis. And at the end of the day, when you construct, you can see who this person was. So nobody will be able to know you if they don't know your history. And they say if you don't have history, then you have no foundation. The question you asked always, how much that was able to influence in decision making? The one other aspect that you should perhaps know, he was never in a hurry to take a decision. He was not one person who said anything hastily. And when he didn't have anything to say, he would either keep quiet or just simply say something but tell you nothing. but to allow time to reveal to him what he should tell him. And so that is the wisdom he had. With the past, very well documented, and for the future, which he was able to do. When you remember history, you always know how was this thing solved, and that helps you make your today conclusions.
When we're looking at the tributes that are pouring in,
yes.
From the continent, from the globe, and you hear Narendra Modi say, call him my friend, Cyril Ramaphosa, my friend, and how much of an impact on the global stage would you say he's had?
Kenya, first of all, is a peak on what one can say of hope in Africa. Among, you would say, 6, 7 strong economies in Africa, Kenya is one of them. And anything that happens in Kenya reverberates around the world. Kenya very strongly, whether in Europe with our strong bond with UK and the rest, and history behind it, with the US. Don't forget Barack Obama having been a Kenyan, put Kenya on the map and all that. But also instances like what happened in 2008 and the rest, with the bad history and good history of Kenya. And so he has friends, and he had that capacity to develop friendship. That's why when he was campaigning for the position of the chairperson of African Union, I was personally happy to campaign for him. Of course, in my mind, I knew it was going to be a very difficult campaign, given the fact that they changed the rules, unlike when it was there. The element of rotation hadn't come in. And those who were changing the rules, I knew where they were going. Although Kenya supported that change, and I remember telling the Kenyan delegation in Addis Ababa, you shouldn't have supported this, because now you put yourself in a straitjacket. He lost. But back to your question, African leaders, given the stage of Kenya as a country, and the events that have taken place in Kenya, and the position that Kenya occupies in Africa, yes, he knew many people and interacted with ease. And particularly he also supported quite a number of in the liberation struggle. I remember, for instance, if you go to Zambia, all these opposition leaders used sometimes to meet in their common endeavor to win elections. So he has associated some of those who have become heads of state in their countries. So he has friends around he had friends around the continent.
All right, so we'll pick that up. But first, I want to catch up with Sam Gituku, who is in Bondo, in fact, at the Opoda Farm. The images you're seeing on your screen are those of the public viewing Raila Odinga's body. And so, Sam, perhaps you can paint us a picture of what the mood is like where you are?
Right, thank you, Olive. What a day it has been here at the Opoda Farm. Very many people that have come here. Of course, earlier on, we knew the plans would be that once the body of Raila Odinga arrives back at the Opoda Farm, it would be taken to the home. But of course, that was changed because of the numbers that had milled around the home. Very many young people had come knowing that the body would make the stream, or rather would take the road all the way to the home. But when that was not possible because of the numbers, the decision was made that the body would first be viewed in a ground that was prepared from the day before yesterday. It is still within the Opoda Farm, but it's an area that was just an empty shamba, now graded, and now that's why you see the people that have come here to view that body. And this continues. Earlier on, you may have seen the images of the family of Raila Odinga, led by the wife of Raila Odinga, that is Dr. Haida Odinga. they were here accompanied by a few leaders from the ODM party and other leaders accompanying them. They were able to come and sort of have a prayer, a brief prayer here before the body, and thereafter they went back to where the home is. But I'll tell you, because you may not have been able to see this, Olive, as they were going back, the numbers that were still outside the compound were receiving announcements from the people that are there. Ruth Odinga was speaking to them and appealing to them to come and view the body from this side, obviously to sort of even manage the expectations of the people that are there, because you would imagine what would happen were the body to be taken closer to their home in such a situation that was there. Everyone would want to have a glimpse or to catch a glimpse of the body itself and the procession. So what we've seen is a very heightened activity here. The security officers from the different organs coming together to help to make sure that this process continues in as much as peaceful manner as possible. And of course, we are also seeing the members of the public managing the expectations, and we also understand that the viewing will continue for some time. Of course, like I told you, the original plan was to start by taking the body to the home, and thereafter it would be brought to the grounds that you find it here. But that has been altered a little bit, but we're expecting that once the viewing concludes here, the grounds that you see, then the body should be taken back to the home for an overnight stay, and thereafter we should be seeing the funeral procession starting come in the morning, taken to the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology, so that the funeral service can be conducted there. So only very many expectations that we've seen here. The people that worked with Raila Odinga coming here. Some of them have worked with him on different occasions. Just a few minutes ago, you saw the Court Secretary General Francis Atwoli coming here to view the body. Earlier on, he was at the home of Ida Odinga. He was there to offer his condolences to the family, and of course explaining to us in the media of what a relationship he had with Raila Odinga, the many things they did together, the many consultations they had, him saying he's actually a relative, that they are in-laws through Ida Odinga, who Francis Atwoli says that they have a relationship. And obviously, after that, he was able to explain of what he thinks of this death that even him didn't see coming, and so much to remember, and so much to appeal to the members of the public that we must find a way of keeping the legacy of Raila Odinga. Also, there are many leaders that have come, including some from Nairobi County, former members of parliament, the likes of Maina Kamanda, the likes of Dennis Waweru, who was a member of parliament in Dagoretti South. They were here to also offer their condolences. We saw the Secretary General of Jubilee Party, Jeremiah Kioni, coming here and also expressing the loss and saying that he feels blessed to have worked with Raila Odinga at some point, especially in the last election. But also there are many leaders from Western Kenya, from the Rift Valley region. We've seen all the governors talk about Paul Otoma of Busia, talk about George Natembea from Trans Nzoia, talk about Fernandez Baraza from Kakamega. They were here to express themselves. We have also seen the governors of Nandi, Stephen Sang, the governor of Baringo, that is Wesley Kiprotich, and also we saw the senator of Uasin Gishu, Jackson Mandago, also coming here to offer their condolences and to also offer their gifts. We understand that they brought in some 80 cows, 80 to represent the age of Raila Odinga at his death, and they are saying that each is to celebrate every year that he lived. Very many leaders coming here, and obviously earlier on we had seen some animals that were taken to the Kango Jaramogi Farm by Eugene Omalo, the party leader of DAPK, who says that 23 years ago, when his brother Michael Kijana Omalo died, Raila Odinga took bulls to that home to condole with them, and this was returning that gesture of togetherness that Raila Odinga offered 23 years ago. So some have taken the animals to the Kango Jaramogi Farm, some have brought the animals to the Opoda Farm, but all they are saying is that they are offering their support. Some leaders from the Prime Cabinet Secretaries team, that is Musalia Mudavadi's team, said that they are doing so to offer what you call in Kiswahili kitoweo. Kitoweo meaning the bulls that they brought, the chicken they brought, and some bananas they brought, saying that it's supposed to support the work that is going on here. So that's how the situation is like here at the Opoda farm. You see the very many numbers. Of course, people having a quick pass through those two paths. Some are watching the body from the left-hand side, others on the right-hand side, just to manage the numbers to ensure that as many people as possible are able to get that chance. And obviously the security officers not taking any chances to ensure that everybody remains safe, to ensuring that even those that are not as strong are protected. We have also witnessed situations where near stampede, but obviously the security officers have been very keen to ensure that they shield whoever falls down until they're able to regain their composure for them to proceed with their journey. So that's the situation. There are very many people that are here. It's approaching 6 o'clock. We are hoping that the numbers will continue to flow and see how fast this process can continue. And Olive, earlier on, we showed you the pictures because the preparations have been going on. At the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology, the grounds are being prepared. The Kangok is preparing the final resting place for Raila Odinga. They'll have completed the process. Or the journey to ensure that once the body leaves the university grounds for final rites for interment, that the grounds, the place, the tomb will be ready for Raila Odinga to be laid to rest. That's what we can tell you from this side for now, Olive.
All right, thank you for that update. Sam Gituku speaking to us from the Opoda farm in Bondo. Just looking at that crowd, that is one enormous crowd. And you know, you're seeing the security agencies trying to make it possible for as many people as possible to view Raila Odinga's body. There are some who are, lining up in the back, and those who are lining up in the front, and, they're being rushed through. But let me get the sentiments of my guests, because aside from Ambassador Erastus Mwencha, former Secretary General COMESA, former Deputy Chair, the Africa Union Commission, we're also joined by historian Dr. Kenneth Ombongi, who also chairs the department at the University of Nairobi. Still?
I'm currently the Associate Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences.
All right, karibu sana.
In charge of research and postgraduate studies.
All right.
I'll move that a bit.
Okay, and my managing editor, Pamela Sigi, tells me her teacher.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
My student up to last year when she graduated.
All right, so it's a somber occasion, but just look at some of the headlines that have graced the dailies since Wednesday, and you look at the Daily Nation talk about a hero's welcome. We see the Standard run two headlines back to back: the People's President, the President we never had. And then you look at your screen and you see this turnout. You saw the turnout at Kasarani. Was this very much a man of the people?
Of course, yes. Honorable Odinga was a man of multiple dimensions. There are those of us who looked up to him as a hero, a champion of democracy, fairness, and justice. And there is the other dimension of him. He has always had this binary of portrait, a hero and a villain at the same time. But you see, we in this time we are overly Africans. We don't, quote unquote, say bad things of the dead. So we are celebrating him as, a great man. But Raila has always had these dualities in his portrait as a politician. A people's president who was never elected at the end one given time. You get that? A man who now we are praising as a reformer, a champion of democracy, fairness, and justice, as we said earlier on. But then a man yesterday, we were calling all sorts of names. You know, I don't want to go into the details of that, but we know that Raila has had always those dimensions. He had a very strong stabilizing influence in the nation. And on the other side, he has elements of fighting for injustice in ways that portrayed him as a rabble-rouser in some senses. So he has had this duality in his life. And we can see it even in his death. You know, he's being mourned both peacefully and a little bit in a chaotic way, as you can see, from Nairobi, from the airport, you know, up to Kasarani. So all we are seeing, in my view, is much in tandem with the man, Honorable Raila Odinga, that some of us knew. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Ambassador, you know, you were talking earlier about his contemporaries, and we were talking about, you know, the circles he moved in. And while we saw some of his contemporaries assume power, as Dr. Mbongi has said, he never assumed the presidency. But irrespective, although we see people still calling him the, you know, the people's president. So do you think, even though he didn't rise to that particular rank, right, hold that particular office, he very much carried the weight, or, you know, bore the influence?
Yes. First of all, I mean, as you say, you know, interacted with the leaders of opposition parties, some of whom became, you know, leaders, presidents in their countries. Because in Africa, there is an informal club of, you know, opposition parties, where, of course, they come together, compare notes. In fact, I used to belong to one association that would meet with them to encourage them on how to have strategy, campaign in a way that finally they can assume presidency, and how to prepare and what not to do in the opposition. Yes, as you say, in Africa, he was known far and wide because of those landmark events like what happened in 2008, but also he was also known as a kingmaker. Don't forget that come 2002, he's the one who said Kibaki tosha. And if he had campaigned that time, it wouldn't have been easy even for Kibaki to win at that time. But because, you know, President you know, Moi had formidable candidate in the name of Uhuru Kenyatta. But because he was able to form a coalition of NAC, they won election. So he's, as my brother here says, there are some who say a man who assumed power but never wanted to take responsibility of power. Because some saw it as a way that if he had wanted to be president, probably would have been, but he didn't want to. There are some who say that in some circles.
Another way of putting it is, he was a kingmaker who was never king himself. If you look at the various administrations in the country, he sustained, he has this binary of either making or sustaining different administrations in the country. It was the last years of Moi's regime. Raila was very critical in sustaining the old man in power. Coming, Kibaki literally met Kibaki. If you remember, during the campaign, Kibaki got involved in an accident. And I remember the famous words of Raila Odinga, that the captain is injured, but the match has to go on.
Yes.
And he assumed the position of captain during Kibaki's campaign. And give it to him. He actually won that presidency for Kibaki. Then look at Uhuru. He literally sustained Uhuru's presidency when the relationship between the current president and Uhuru then, the current president with his deputy, they couldn't go very well. He needed that 18th March 2018 handshake for Uhuru to stabilize his administration.
Right.
That was Raila. Look at Ruto. Literally, he went looking for him to stabilize and sustain his administration. So Raila had this fantastic binary of being a kingmaker who never actually wore the crown of kingship. And I say you always see those dualities in his life. A very peaceful man, but also when he felt that unfairness and injustice was being practiced, he was capable of actually mobilizing the people. And he had a very fascinating way of relating to the popular public. He's the only one, if he was living in a time like this one, he's the only one who can calm a crowd like this one.
Yes.
I remember, was it here or in another station, where somebody said Raila oscillated between the boardroom and the street very much comfortably. He would leave Kamkunji and come for a meeting in a 5-star hotel in Serena and chill very well with the dignitaries. And when he gets to the street, it just costs a simple hey, and people will listen. That's a man we are actually celebrating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ambassador, you know, one of the trends today, interestingly enough, is Barack Obama. And you know, the Kenyans had taken slight, some Kenyans online, that Barack Obama did not until a few hours ago acknowledge Raila Odinga's death. You know, do you feel like, you know, this clamor for he needs to be accorded the respect he is due? What do you make of that?
To me, it's very clear that that was really, I think, a blunder on the part of Obama, because Obama himself, whether he likes or not, he still has that tag of an American of Kenyan origin. And so it would have only been fair of him to acknowledge. And I wouldn't say that it is because he didn't know Raila in any way. He knew Raila. In fact, in 2008, when Obama was campaigning, and I happened in one way or another to also, support that campaign from far or being in the States, I remember that there was a very strong delegation of Kenya. And I'm trying to recall in my mind whether Raila himself came to the inauguration, but I was there at his inauguration. Kenya was given a prominence around the world. And so Obama cannot deny being a Kenyan. And so I think that was a sin of omission. And of course, when people die, you may not have liked certain aspects of Raila or whatever it is. And they were saying early on that as Africans, we forget about that. In fact, you remember in history itself, when Julius Caesar died, he had been accused of many things. But when Anton came to bury, the crowd was already very charged, because they were kind of saying, well, let him, this was a dictator, let him die. He spoke at that funeral and said, I've come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. But what did he do? The rest of his speech was praising him. And he's saying, whereas the good that we do is sometimes forgotten and interred with the body, it's only the legacy of the bad things people may remember. But at the end of it, the crowd changed its stance. When somebody died, it's only, and that's what you saw yesterday, people were not talking about some of those missteps he may have had in life. And all of us do have missteps in life. And I'm sure even Raila himself would be one to acknowledge he had missteps in life if he were alive today. And so, yes, it's only fair that we acknowledge him. And I think Obama, to that extent, I think that was a miss that, but it's better late than never. He sent a message, and I think let's forget about that.
And some were saying you should board a flight.
Yeah. You see, Ambassador is older than me. There's a saying in my village that you can be best of enemies, but there's a way in which death brings you two together. I don't know whether that brings out the meaning, but for those who understand that language, I'm sure they will know, because it says, "Jagamwangane, mwanjanere matati." You can be worst of enemies, but there's a way in which death brings you together. And that's the case in many, many, many communities. In fact, I very quickly tweeted, I think very early in the morning, answering Obama back, and I said, this is deeply reassuring, sir. Your words have brought warmth to many hearts across Kenya and beyond. We were beginning to wonder, with gentle curiosity, whether news of our national bereavement had reached you. Thank you for this noble tribute. It carries the grace of remembrance and the dignity of shared history. That's how I tweeted it when I saw Obama's, and you saw in various social media, Kenyans were beginning to ask, ajui kwamba tuko na matanga nyumbani?
I was saying the same to Ambassador here. They camped in his comments section on social media. But Raila has been described by many as enigma. You know, what in your view, Ambassador, do you think that is about?
Well, the name enigma himself is an enigma because it kind of tells you it's a mystery kind of person that you cannot fully describe. And you cannot give one paint and say he's blue, white, or whatever color you may give. That is the man that you are talking about. And Raila, I mean, he is a man that could lose elections, and the next day he's shaking hands with the person he has lost the election. He is a man that was down to earth at family level. You saw him enjoy some of the things. He would go and watch football and whatever it is. He mixed. You can see the rank and the file that are mourning him. I mean, I can't remember any funeral of this magnitude since 1978 when Mzee Jomo Kenyatta died. At that time I was working, and when it was announced at 1 o'clock that he has died, Kenya felt dark. Now, this is the kind of impact that he has had. You can see the country has been at a standstill. I've watched even no international news. You have given nothing, a placard just about him. This is a man that was towering in many ways, as we said at the beginning.
You know, even just driving around, you see people with the matawi.
Yes.
Kwa magari, and no call, not that I'm aware of, was made for people to do the same. This enigma tag, you know, this, where did it come from?
You see, Honorable Odinga means different things to different people. That's where the notion of enigma comes from. You see, figuratively, I see him as an elephant, a huge elephant in a dark room. And people were set in there and asked to describe the elephant. Those who touched the tail will say things about the tail. Those who touched the trunk and the body. That was Raila for you. You have heard, for example, stories from some parts of the country where jokingly people say when children are crying, they will threaten them that we will call Raila. You know, strong feeling of Raila, what Kijana Wamara call Raila phobia. Then there are other parts of the country where the man is deeply admired. And then the other thing is that here is a man who was fairly unpredictable. When you predict that he is going to cause chaos, he makes peace. You know, when you think he's going to make peace, then he calls for protest. He's a man who he admired when he says something and hated at equal measure when he says something. And when he doesn't say, still there are those who admire him and there are those who you know, see him as a villain. That's the enigma we are talking about. You cannot pin him down into something small. Honorable Odinga was probably, you know, his appeal to the ordinary people is up to now, even to us historians, is unexplainable. he was not one of the most eloquent politicians we had in the country. He's not comparable to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who, when he takes a podium, even if you didn't like him, you will listen to him. You know, Raila had something that even in areas where he's hated most, if he landed there, they will welcome him. That is the enigma that we are talking about. Not easily understood, a man you cannot describe with one sentence. Yes.
And I'll come back to you, Ambassador, to tell us about that something that he had. But just a quick update, we will be hearing shortly from the Principal Secretary Interior, Raymond Omolo, on the program for tomorrow. But already the Deputy President, Kithure Kindiki, has issued the statement that tomorrow the final interment ceremony will take place, starting with an interment service at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m., followed by committal final prayers and military honors at the gravesite at Kango Kajaramogi, Bondo, Siaya County. But let's listen in now.
So, Jay, we are ready for tomorrow. We have had a long and very peaceful 3 days from the morning that the remains of the Right Honorable touched down at JKA was overwhelmingly received, and we have had overpouring of emotions from across the country. You saw it in Nairobi. Today, basically the whole day, the body has been in Kisumu with huge numbers streaming in just to pay their last respect. And I must appreciate the people of Kenya for that show of love, and also just working seamlessly. We had a few isolated cases of push and pull, but considering the magnitude of this ceremony and the person of Raila Odinga, we have done exceedingly well, and we are going to have the final burial ceremony tomorrow here at Just Grounds. We have everything ready. The body is just about to leave Kisumu for Bondo. It will have an overnight stay at his home at Opoda Farm. Then the service tomorrow is expected to begin at 9 a.m. to be conducted by the Anglican Church of Kenya. Thereafter, the military will take over to do the final bit of the ceremonies that are according to the traditions of a state burial. We expect huge traffic into Bondo, and we have made the necessary arrangements with our security officers, and my appeal to the public and the mourners that will be coming is to work closely and follow the directions. And we have also made alternate arrangements for people who will not be able to make it to the grounds to be able to view from wherever they are. So we'll have screens all over in Bondo town, in other counties, including Nairobi, as far as Garissa, Mombasa, Homa Bay, Isiolo. And this event will also be streamed live. I'm sure as citizens you'll be able to be streaming it live. So it will be possible for everybody, every Kenyan, and everyone who will tune in to follow the proceedings. We want to appreciate the family of Raila for having given us Raila. And Raila has done his bit. He has contributed immensely to this country. And the send-off that the president and the government is giving him fully befits the stature of the person of Raila Odinga. Actually, I don't think there's any other ceremony like we are having for the Honorable Raila in the history of this country. The numbers, the organization, the planning, and the execution, and considering that it's being done in 72 hours, speaks to how larger than life Raila Odinga was. I also must commend and appreciate the leadership of the party. That is the ODM party, that he was a party leader, that we've been able to work seamlessly, under the chairmanship of the Deputy President, co-chaired by Senator Oburu, that we have everything working seamlessly towards this. And lastly is just to honor the person of Raila in terms of what he stood for. In the last more than a year, he made a conscious decision and led his party to form a broad-based government with His Excellency the President. And this is because his value that the country is bigger than any individual, that is bigger than any of our differences that we may have. And it is my appeal to Kenyans and those who believed in Raila, who supported him, that we must honor him by following through into what he believed in. And as a son from this region, I also must add my voice that we are in government fully courtesy of Raila Odinga, and we have no intention of going out of government anytime soon. And His Excellency the President has honored us, has honored this community by giving the Honorable Raila all the rights that goes with his stature for the sacrifices he has made in this country. And we owe His Excellency a big sense of gratitude for thinking through this and for the many, many things that he's going to do. So we are looking forward to following into the footsteps and seeing through to what the Honorable Raila started with His Excellency the President. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Perhaps it could have.
All right, that was the Principal Secretary Interior Raymond Omolo speaking earlier from Bondo. We've also received an update as promised from the office of the Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, who is co-chairing the funeral committee with Oburu Odinga. And they say there will be further events and activities to honor Raila after tomorrow's burial. But he had also communicated, as you heard there from Raymond Omolo, that the final interment ceremony will take place, starting with a service at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m., followed by committal, final prayers and military honors at the graveside at Kango Kajaramogi, Bondo, Siaya County. I have in studio historian Dr. Kenneth Ombongi. We also have Ambassador Erastus Mwencha, who's had a distinguished career in the diplomatic service. He was the Secretary General of COMESA and also AUC Deputy Chair. And Ambassador, I was coming to you with a question of, that's something that Raila had that inspired in some almost a blind following. Yes. Remember, even with BBI, there are those who said, Kama Baba Amesoma, Kwisha. Yeah. What do you think that was about?
He had that charisma, very unique charisma. And sometimes even before he said anything, you would feel the crowd is already warmed up when he starts and says, higher, higher, without even saying anything. And that unique charisma, as Kenneth said earlier on, it was not eloquent, but yet people knew that there was wisdom in what he was going to say. And I would say here that many people misunderstood him in many ways because of some of his philosophy, particularly on the area of, the state taking responsibility on some of the public goods, like education, health, and the rest, housing, that no one should be left behind. To the extent that some people mischaracterized him as a socialist. I remember encountering a number of people, particularly from the West, who always were fearing that if he were elected president of Kenya, he would probably take Kenya to the east or a capitalist. But he was as capitalist as they came. And as you know, he's very successful in his own way in business. And look at some of these actions. The fact that he would even leave a will behind to say, I should be buried within 72 hours. that tells him he's a person that was humble enough. He didn't want the public nor the family to suffer because he has died. But beyond that, you know, I was very much inspired by this, the message that was given by the clergy yesterday. That message by the bishop, where he said that many people that thought that he was not generous. And a lot of people I've encountered keep on saying they have never seen him contributing this large amount of money somewhere. And he revealed that even when he contributed, he didn't want anybody to know that he had contributed that kind of money. That shows you he wasn't a man that bought influence. That part of the charisma, people who knew him. And there were people who were crying, eulogizing him, saying, he's made me what I was. He bought for me this, he did for me this. But he never went about to publicize that. That is something that very unique politician in many ways.
You know, him talking about he never sought to persuade people through the wallet.
Yes.
And for many, that was the highlight of the funeral service. But Dr. Umbongi, for many, Raila was a resistance figure. If you look back at the 2024 Gen Z protests, there were those, millennials perhaps and upward, who were resigned that if Raila is not going to contest this bill, then it will pass unopposed. And thereafter arose this Gen Z movement. Would you say they were birthed of a Raila growing up in that era?
Before I answer that, maybe let me add into what Ambassador was saying about what gave Raila the charisma that he exhibited, virtually all his political life. One, of course, is we all misunderstood him. And he used that really to present this very fairly ambiguous image to the public. He had power in that misunderstanding. The second one, and this is what many people don't know, Raila knew how to manage situations. And things will go the way he wants, whether you like it or not. Look at it now. Raila managed us in life, and look at in death, he's managing us. He says, I have to be buried in 72 hours. You
remind me of what Winnie said yesterday, and she said she could imagine her father with that heaving laughter, that even in death he's controlling things.
Yes, and Olive, I can say I had a privilege to work with Raila. He was in touch with what is happening. He had the information. And he had this false sense of, he walks into a meeting, and then you start talking, and he looks like he's asleep. When you finish, he actually summarizes very clearly what each of you said. And you wonder, was he sleeping or was he listening? That was Raila for you. He had, if the late Professor Odero Ruka was alive, could describe as sage philosophy. He was a sage philosopher. Raila never answered the questions directly. No. You ask him a question, he will answer it using a story. He will explain a situation, then he will give a figurative and saying you will be like a monkey in a sugar plantation without knowing that the sugar cane is sukari. That was Raila for you. He was so immersed in the African philosophical understanding of situations, so that what he says meant different things to different people, yes, depending on who is looking at it. We call it in historical discourse meaningful ambiguity. It was meaningfully ambiguous. That was Raila. Let me now come to...
I think that's the first time I've heard that terminology used.
Yeah. Let me come to your question directly about the Gen Z and Raila. Raila, in his innate nature, in his natural way, he was actually a child of protest and resistance. It starts when he is born in 1945, and the father takes him to I think it was Bishop Owen of Maseno Anglican Church, to be baptized. And the father is asked, what is the name of the child? He says, Raila Amolo Odinga. And he says, no, the Christian name. The father still insists that it's Raila Amolo Odinga. And he becomes one of the very first Africans to be baptized in the Anglican Church using African names. Unlike some of us, I'm called Kenneth. When I lived in the UK, I discovered that Kenneth is a Scottish surname. And I wondered, what the hell is my mother giving me a Scottish surname as a first name? Raila, from the very beginning, was actually his father's whip of protest, if you looked at it, probably compared with his elder brother. And if you listened to Oburu the other day, Raila started his protest even when he was as early as class 3. Mm-hmm. He gets late to school.
Says he was listening to news.
He was listening to news. That's Raila himself. And I understand the disappointment of the Gen Zs, because they naturally thought that the moment they went to the street, Raila would support them. What they did not know is that you cannot take Raila and predict the direction he's going. I said earlier, he was one of the most unpredictable politicians that we had. And he could always want to do things. Raila changed friends. He changed allies. He even changed rivals. But one thing that did not change is him sticking to principle, particularly on issues of justice and fairness. Mm-hmm. That you can take it to the bank, I'm sure. And I'm talking about a man who, I don't like being so public about this, who I worked with and worked for on and off continuously for a couple of years now. You cannot pin him down into something small. So now I'm sure people are appreciating. It looks like he had a premonition of some kind. You could imagine if Raila died today and he was still strongly in opposition to the current government, what kind of country will we have today? I'm a historian, and we say that as historians, if we are prophets, we will be prophets of the past. But when I allow some latitude to begin to imagine, if Raila died at the midst of the protests against the current government, what country could we have today? If we are not able to bury him very easily, yes. And as I said in one of my tweets, that Raila was a man of the people. He lived by the power of the people, and it looks like it is the power of the people that will bury him. How many times have we changed plans of what we were to do from the official committee? It's now the people who are commanding the way he's going to be buried. You can see the crowds that are actually hovering around. It's a mass of humanity. Mm. That is probably
You mean if you just looked at the pictures out of JKIA, they took over the airport?
And they violated all the security arrangements that have been put in place. And for the first time, we had only Mwananchi with boda right inside in the airway of the Kenya International Airport. It only happened when we were mourning Raila, and I don't think whether it will happen again. Maybe not in our lifetime.
It's interesting because the two of you plus Raymond Omolo are saying the same thing. Yeah. This is historic, what we are witnessing. Yes. But Raila Odinga, as an influence, you've described him as a kingmaker. Mm. There are some areas where, he said Kibaki tosha, Kibaki alitosha. There are some politicians who owe their careers to the man. Mm. Whether at the ward level or the county level, if he said, this is my candidate, then that is who would assume the office. But who are his influences, Ambassador?
Come again?
Who are his influences as a leader?
I may not be able to speak with authority on some of those, but I can tell you that, as he said, he had information that you would never be able to understand how he gathers that information. as you said, I remember, I mean, in run-up to the 2022 elections, he tapped into quite a number of people to support in giving ideas for his manifesto. I saw Ken there. And even when you saw the number of people in the room, you saw everybody from the country. So he had, you would not say that his source of influence came from one person. He himself, he had that core beliefs, tenets that he hung on to, values that he stuck to. And so if he found that you were not in any way sharing with the ideas he had a way of abandoning you very fast. And he knew people that he would call from time to time. And even that time when he has to tap you to come into that, you might think that now you are very close to him, but probably you'd be mistaken at the end of the day that he knows what he wanted to get from you, and that is it. And maybe that's where some people would also then, I have met people who are very bitter that I did this, I did that for him, I worked this on this for him, but I wasn't. And there are people who also value that they should get either appointments or be recognized. He wasn't that kind of person. You have done your part, so just be content, and be content that you have contributed. That's the kind of man. Now, I go back to some of those things that we talked earlier on. If you remember 2017, election is held, contested, election is nullified. And everybody thinks this is now a chance that we'll take it because the country was really now sympathizing that, look, since 2008, 13, here is 17, and it looked like that was the last bullet, as he was calling it. But again, he rose from the ashes from 2017, again to put up a formidable fight in 2022. But going back to 2017, when it was nullified, he refuses to go back on account of principles. Those are some of the principles, because for him, if it is the same IBC that is going to supervise this election, so I know the outcome. So he didn't go. So that's the kind of person he was. Principled, but of course, at the same time, ready to compromise.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Mbongi, as you add to that, maybe you can also address the question of who are his political influences?
That's very simple to grasp. Just look at the names of his children. Mm-hmm. Look at the names of his children.
Yeah, Ida was explaining that yesterday.
Fidel Castro, very influenced by the revolutionary ideas that nurtured and midwifed the Cuban Revolution. That's why he could call his son Fidel Castro. He had a special admiration to Nelson Mandela. Nelson was a man who went to prison before I was born. He came out when I was in second year in the University of Nairobi. And he could say, take your spears, take your clubs and throw them to the sea and come to the table and we talk peace and stability. And from there, we have the Rainbow Nation of South Africa. Winnie was named after Mandela's wife. And you heard the wife saying, if Winnie was a boy, he could be Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Those are the people. He talked fondly of Tom Sankara, for example, the young revolutionary of the current country that has another revolutionary in power in form of a military general. He had very fascinating admiration of the ideas of Muammar Gaddafi and his Green Revolution. And these are the people who, particularly the Western world, wrote off, and probably that's why they never quite trusted Honorable Raila Odinga 100%. They always took him with a pinch of salt. And for me, those are the people who inspired him politically. But away from that, there's a way in which Raila was a man of principle. In fact, for him, he was never kind of moved by power. He was moved by principle. His moral compass never changed. He changed. I said a moment ago, he changed friends, he changed allies, he even changed enemies. But he never changed the idea of sticking to principles. That's why in many of the things he did, Raila will call upon professionals. And he's one politician, and I'll tell you this for free, that many professionals offered their services pro bono. I'll tell you that for free, including myself.
You know, is that why he made some statements that maybe would be unpopular in the political class? Because we saw him say 47 counties, too many.
Yes.
For a country the size of Kenya. You know, he talked about the NG CDF, and you know, and he said, my position is unpopular, but I don't care. Raila sticks to his position on scrapping NG-CDF. You can imagine those in his camp, those who surround him, would be, you know, are on the other side of things.
Of course. That is the man of principle that you are talking about. In fact, somebody has sent me a photo here that we took when he was launching this idea that we came up with of paying 6,000 shillings to needy people if he takes over the presidency at the rooftop of the University of Nairobi Towers. And somebody has sent me that photo here. And you could see a man of principle. He listened to professionals. He processed that information. But finally, he will actually make the last decision.
Ambassador, where are we left as a country? Because for many, despite protests online that, you know, he may have betrayed the cause where Gen Z is concerned, people were still looking to him to see, okay, what direction is he going to take us in 2027? He still, in very many people's minds, held that title of kingmaker. Where are we as a nation now that he's gone, in your opinion?
We are now at crossroads, but this is a very good moment for us to do some reflections and chart a way forward with some sobriety and very careful reflections. I'm sure many people are mourning. They are feeling orphaned, abandoned, betrayed, that the job was never finished. There is, of course, an unfinished agenda in terms of, if you look at, say, let's look at the implementation of our Constitution. We haven't fully implemented the Constitution as envisaged it. You know, if you do that package itself. And that's why even some of the things that were in the Constitution that needed to be tweaked, there was this element of BBI and the rest. But I guess the manner in which they were brought, people were skeptical. But let's not throw away the path water with the baby. There are some good things that we could harness. If only the politician would come with clean hands so that they correct some of those things that continue to be a thorn in the flesh in the country. So going forward, I would imagine, one of the things I can see, there's going to be quite a lot of realignment politically. And that realignment, one hopes that it will be for the good. I have fears that, you know, a multipartyism could be weakened in many ways, unless you have somebody who can steady the ship to say, Kenya as a democracy, we need really a voice of reason, and it's only fair. And in fact, I know that even our current administration, when they were campaigning, they stood on that platform to say, let's strengthen multipartyism. Now, that is as far as politics is concerned. But when it comes to development, he was also very strong in areas, particularly the social sector, whether you talk of education, health, housing, infrastructure. In fact, during him and the Kibaki administration, not many people knew that Nairobi was such a dire need of infrastructure. And since then, you can see the programs that initiated, a lot is still going on. But that's one of the areas that you would say in the realm of development we need to continue to focus on. And to maintain his legacy, we should also, and I hope perhaps as one of the takeaway from this show, I would really urge that we should honor him with some monument somewhere, so that young people growing will continue to remember who was this man, to know the history and the role he played. Because yesterday, many of our leaders said very clearly that when the history of this country is written, his name will be etched in that history. And so one of the things we could do, or rather need to be in the books that we've been themselves, let's have a monument for him to remember him as one of those who contributed in many ways to the country being, especially in the second liberation. There's no question about it. His father was there for the first liberation, and he was there in the birth of a new second liberation.
All right. Dr. Mungi, your last word? And I just remembered even the unpopular position he took on the mouth. Go ahead.
You see, the death of Raila's, the impact is yet to be seen. Let's bury him first. And then I'm very sure that, as he says, there will be many orphans. There are people who clung literally to his trousers to get into power. I'm sure many of them will stumble. There's no doubt about that. There are those who build a career out of Raila phobia, just fear of Raila. And they became MPs just for castigating Raila. They will also falter. There are those of us professionally who gained from his goodwill. You only needed to be associated with him and you will have a lot of doors open, particularly those of us who are in the world of consultancy. We will naturally suffer. But politically, of course, it doesn't need a Jewish prophet to see the direction ODM will go. The factions have started emerging already. One around Raila's brother, another one around Secretary General Sifuna, and probably Wanga is also organizing us from South Nyanza, you know. So that is fairly obvious. You are dealing with a man, when he coughed, the whole country went down with a cold. So with that kind of impact, I only hope, and this is how my wish for the future, that we will learn from Raila and stand for meritocracy, equity, and fairness in our country. If there is a monument that we want to build for Raila, before we talk about a physical monument, the best monument that we can build for Raila is to begin to talk about fairness without political patronage. To talk about justice for everybody, without looking at who supports who within the political establishment. For me, that would be the best honor to the fallen hero.
All right. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for sharing your insights, your experiences. We've had in studio Ambassador Erastus Mwencha, former AUC Deputy Chair, former COMESA SG. The accolades are many. But as he said, he's known Raila since 1970s. This is the 1970s. 74. 74. We've also had in studio Dr. Kenneth Ombongi, historian and Associate Dean.
Yes, I'm an Associate Dean in the Faculty of Arts and Social Science at the University of Nairobi now.
Yes.
Former Chair of the Department of History and Archaeology.
All right. Na mwalimu wa Masigi. I've been your host, Olive Burrows, but coming up, we'll have Rashid Abdallah and Lulu Hassan. But even as we pay tribute to Raila Odinga, we leave you with this images coming out of Opoda Farm in Bondo.
Mama Aida, eti umeenda. Tambiaje Winnie Odinga, eti umeenda. Tambiaje Rosie Watinga, eti umeenda. Tambiaje Oburu ya brother, baba umetuacha wewe. Kila kona ya taifa taifa, jina lako linasemwa. Ulitupenda bila mipaka, ukatupa tumaini. Na kila mtoto, kila mama, kifo chako wanalia. Mbona kusema unaondoka hata sasa hatuamini. Baba yoyo, bye bye. Baba yoyo, bye bye. Baba yoyo, bye bye. Bye bye. Baba yoyo, bye bye. Baba yoyo, bye bye. Baba yoyo, bye bye. Mbona hivi mabaya? Umeenda mapema, damu ya jenzi bado haijalipwa. Umeenda mapema, tuliamini siku moja utaongoza. Umetuacha mapema, ulichopigania matunda hujaona. Lakini Baba ukipenda, kutuma dhara nitasema ulinituma. Kuna mambo fulani Baba mulipanga, ila Wakenya hujatuambia. Rais Ruto akimaliza miaka, umetuacha hujatuonyesha njia. Tunapata tabu, ungependa kiongozi mgani Nairobi? Ni mtoto wako babu ama Sakaja? Hatuelewi. Baba ukusema Lang'ata ni Jalasa Omondi. Umetuacha kwa huruma, ila pumzika kwa amani Baba. Baba yoyo, bye bye. Baba yoyo, bye bye. Baba yoyo, bye bye. Bye bye. Baba yoyo, bye bye. Baba yoyo, bye bye. Baba yoyo, bye bye. Mbona hivi mabaya? Wanasema Izula, tulikupenda sana, Mola kakupenda zaidi. Ala, salimia Oginga, usisahau Kenyatta, mwambie Kenya
Toa wanafunga. Right, we are at the tail end of the body viewing here at the Opoda Farm. The body of Raila Odinga, the security officers were the last ones to complete the process of viewing. What you're witnessing right now are the military officers who are here paying their respects and at the same time cleaning the casket from the dust that has been, the casket has been exposed to that dust for the past few hours of the afternoon. They have also had a moment for themselves individually and of course representing their colleagues in the different security organs they come from, viewing the body of the late Raila Odinga, the former Prime Minister, here at the Opoda Farm grounds, special grounds that were prepared to make sure that this process happens. You may be seeing some members of the public who've come in late, getting a chance, albeit very late, because this process had just come to a conclusion, and the last people to view, as had been planned, were the security officers. And any minute now, that casket will be closed so that the body can now be taken to the house or the home of Raila Odinga. I told you earlier that the process had been intended to start from the home, then bring the body here, but a few adjustments were made to make sure that they were able to contain the many numbers of persons, members of the public that were interested to come and view the body. So that change has facilitated every other person to have an opportunity to view the body. Family members are being invited to come and surround the casket, because this is also an important process for the rights towards the final processes for Raila Odinga while on earth. And as soon as this process is done, expectation is that the casket will be taken to the home of Raila Odinga. And there are certain requirements of how the body accesses the home. We're being told that in the Luo culture, the main entrance to a home is the gate that faces the entrance of the house. It has to be a straight path from the gate to the house itself. The expectation has been that that is the path that will be followed. We'll wait to see what exactly happens, to just confirm what we are hearing from those that understand the culture of the Luo community more. But it's been quite an afternoon here of the very requirement by members of the public to have that opportunity. Many among them government officials, including Principal Secretary for Higher Education, Dr. Beatrice Inyangala, who has just come and viewed the body, among the last persons to do so. The last minute rush here, as you may see it, of a few members of the public who one will not know where they were, knowing that there has been enough time for people to come and pay their respects. The security officers were fearing that some of them could actually be repeating this process, saying that some had actually gotten an opportunity. So what you're seeing now are the final minutes of this entire process, so that we can see what else happens. And just remind you that in the morning, once the body spends the night in the home of Raila Odinga, in the morning it is expected to be moved to the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology for the interment service, which is scheduled to begin from the hour of 9 o'clock. And the hope is that by 1 o'clock it will have been concluded. There will be a funeral service led by members of the church, the Anglican Church of Kenya. We were there at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology for the preparations that were being conducted. And now that process has come to a conclusion in readiness for this service, funeral service, interment service in honor of Raila Odinga. Shortly after the conclusion of that service at the university, then the procession of the body will be taken to Kang Oka Jaramogi. Of course, many things had been expected, that the body would be moved by road, as had been the announcement on the first day by the State Funeral Committee that is led by the Deputy President, but later on adjustments were made and the announcement made because the expectation had been that the body would be moved from Kisumu to Bondo via road, but that was changed, respecting the fact that time was of the essence, but at the same time the numbers that were milling around that entire route going all the way to Bondo, and obviously the very many members of the public that are waiting to view the body here at the Opoda farm, those adjustments were sufficient and were important, were crucial to ensure that there is an opportunity for everyone who arrives here to view the body. What we know is that even tomorrow, there are plans on how the body will be moved from the Jaramogi University, but also moving to the Kang Oka Jaramogi for the burial rites. But we'll wait to see what exactly happens eventually when the process meets reality. But for sure, that interment will happen tomorrow. We were able to see the gravesite earlier in the morning, and the work was continuing to make sure that the final home of Raila Odinga is ready as soon as the time for interment is here. The engineer there, Maurice Akech, was telling us that They are hoping that by tomorrow, the hours before afternoon, they will have an opportunity to conclude that particular process to ensure that the site is ready. Obviously, you'll understand the much work that has gone into this, from the digging of the grave up until the chance for them to build it. And what we know is that they are doing everything possible, as Engineer Kech was telling us, to ensure that that tomb will have the integrity, the strength to withstand any kind of pressure that may come on the day, but also naturally from the soil surrounding it. So in a minute now, they will be closing the casket. The announcer here is saying that people are abusing the access and viewing the body once more. Now he's asking members of the public to push away to allow this process. Let me just allow you to hear what is going on by giving you the sound.
Na itikadi rasmi za idara ya ulinzi.
Right, so a few consultations going on before the closing of the casket can be effected, so that they can conclude the viewing here, a process that is really very well guarded by members of the Kenya Defence Forces, including military police, who have also been here, and of course the entire process very well taken care of by security officers from the National Police Service, from the Kenya Defence Forces, and others who are helping with maintaining order, making sure that nobody gets hurt, nobody gets improperly exposed, but also ensuring that members of the public get that great opportunity to pay their final respects to the fallen leader. So what we are seeing now is still some consultation on how the...
Tafadhali tusonge nyuma kama tunavyoelekezwa na maafisa wa usalama. Songa nyuma kila mmoja. Songa nyuma, peana nafasi.
Right, the announcer continues to request for people to allow a space, because as soon as this is done, then the body will be moved to the hearse that is just behind us. We'll be able to show you as soon as that happens. And the expectation, like I told you, is to move the body to the side of the homestead of Raila Odinga. Quite an afternoon here, and we also see representation from the clergy, the chaplains, from the Kenya Defence Forces. We see the Kenya Air Force, the Kenya Navy, and the Kenya Army representatives here, because this is a state funeral and an opportunity that has been accorded by the government of Kenya, and to give this important final honors to Raila Odinga. A few people there, here, members of the immediate family, getting their chance to view the body, and expecting that the body will then be moved to the house where it will spend the night. And now the action is here. Members of the Kenya Defence Forces.
Wale munafika, tafadhali musimamie hapo kwanza. Musimamie hapo kwanza. Musimamie hapo kwanza, wananchi wapendwa. Erokamano. Erokamano.
You see, the solemn moment for the Kenya Defence Forces closing the casket for that transition as they make their final consultations on how best to move from here to the vehicle that is waiting to move the body to its next destination. And the military very keen to ensure that they wipe out the dust that the casket may have accumulated during its stay here this afternoon for the viewing. Still, as they do that, it is a symbol of honor to this leader that touched many lives in Kenya and beyond. Seeing friends of the family coming to condole with the family of Raila Odinga, from the family of Morgan Changirai, former opposition leader of Zimbabwe, whose spouse was here to condole with Mama Ida Odinga, from representatives from Juba in South Sudan, sent here to also be together with the family, the very many leaders, political leaders from different parts of the country, and that announcement by Mama Ida Odinga that former president of Nigeria is also condoling with the family, and hopefully would be seeing him during the final send-off, the final burial rites and the preceding interment service. The military continue with this, leaving nothing to chance, to be sure that as they drape the casket with the Kenyan flag, it is without unnecessary dirt that obviously would affect the dignity of the moment, the integrity of the moment. And we will be here to watch as the military move the body. It's just about 5 meters or so to where the vehicle is, so that they can be on the move. And perhaps for it being a solemn moment, it's also befitting to allow you to watch these pictures in silence. So now the body is moved to the awaiting hearse. I'll allow you to continue watching that.
Umelala we
Right, and after the members of the Kenya Defence Forces have laid the body inside that house, it is now time to move to the next stage.
Mupeane nafasi na msikaribie huko. Peana nafasi. Wapiga picha ningeomba musonge hatua mbili nyuma. Cameraman 2 steps back. Let us not be intrusive. 2 steps back. Thank you.
Na mtazamaji aliyeishi maisha yake kwa niaba ya wengi, aliyapigania mengi kwa niaba ya wengi na aliyeonyesha furaha yake na furaha ya taifa kwa kuvumilia majeraha ya upambanaji kwa kuyabeba makovu ya taifa kwa ajili ya taifa. Ndiye kuwa siye na siye kuwa ndiye, ndiyo falsafa iliyomfanya kuyaishi maisha ya gerezani, maisha ambayo yalimjengea zaidi kimitazamo, kifungo ambacho kilimpa ari mpya na uchu wa kufa kwa ajili ya taifa lake.
Naam, alingurumisha tinga na kulitia katika ardhi isiyo tambarare, ardhi iliyojaa rotuba ya ubinafsi kwa kunyuziwa mbolea hushi ya mfumo wa chama kimoja. Alilazimika kutumia nyundo ili kuvunja vigingi vilivyozunguka shamba hili, jambo ambalo alikuwa rahisi ingawaje alifaulu. Harakati
na dhamira zake zikazagaa sio tu nchini bali pia nje ya nchi, na kuhakikisha hakwami katika vita vya kutafuta haki na usawa. Ilibidi atumie turufu muhimu ya kumpa ushindi, turufu ya kutotabirika, turufu ya kutoeleweka, turufu ya agwambo, turufu iliyoleta mageuzi ya kidemokrasia.
Na ubaguzi wa kimaeneo na kiraslimali, unyanyapaa na ukandamizaji ulihitaji kikao cha walio na busara ili kupata utatuzi. Na hapa alihitajika muendesha kikao mwenye msimamo, muendesha kikao jasiri aliye na uchungu na taifa, na kikao kikapata Jacom, mwenyekiti aliyepambana hadi kuhakikisha Kenya inavaa vazi la usawa wa hali na mali, vazi la katiba mpya, safari ambayo Jacom alisukuma hadi mwaka 2010 ilipoleta natija nchini.
Uhuru ukiwepo, vyama vya kisiasa vikishamiri, huku gatuzi ukifanya kazi. Kulihitaji jungu kuu kuongoza njia, taifa likamwamini, akawa ndio mzazi na mwongozi. Lakini baba hakufaulu kuwavusha waliomwamini katika nchi ya ahadi ya Canaan. Lakini baada ya kushinda kulalamikia mawimbi makali yaliyokuwa kikwazo, kama baba alijua na jukumu la kuangalia maslahi ya waliomwamini kuliko maslahi yake. Ndiposa amekuwa katika maridhiano na makubaliano na marais wanne, hatua ambayo wengine walikosoa na kuitaja kama usaliti.
Lakini kwake yalikuwa maamuzi ya kizalendo ya kushinikiza umoja, upendo na amani. Maamuzi ambayo yameeleweka wakati wa kifo chake.
Wapo walio na hofu na kesho kutwa ya taifa letu la Kenya. Je, ni kumaanisha baba ameenda wazazi wake hawapo? Baba ameenda vipi hukusu hawa watoto zaidi ya milioni 55? Watafanya kipi kuanzia sasa na kuendelea? Baba ametangulia mbele za haki. Je, boma lake litasambaratika? Haya ni maswali ambayo kama taifa sote tunapaswa kujiuliza.
Alitumia maisha yake kupiga vita ukabila na kuitafuta Kenya bora iliyo na ubora kwa wote. Alitumia ushawishi wake kushinikiza mabadiliko na mageuzi ya kitaifa. Alitumia ukomavu wake wa kisiasa kuunganisha taifa. Hakutumia makovu ya mateso aliyopitia kulipiza kisasi kwa mtu, jamii au kabila. Alitumia pumzi yake kufanya kila alichoamini ni chema kwa taifa. Kama alivyopewa jina na Gakweli, ndivyo ukweli ulivyomjenga na kuaminika, na ndivyo ukweli ulivyomponza na kuonekana adui wa maendeleo na ustawi wa taifa.
Na kama wapo waliotia shaka mapenzi na ushawishi wake katika uhai wake, basi amewapa jibu katika umauti wake.
Na kama binadamu hakuwa mtimilifu na mkamilifu, lakini alipania kuleta utiifu na unyofu nchini.
Nenda salama baba.
Ukalazwe pema Jacom.
Tutaonana baadaye ya Gwambo.
Tutakukumbuka Tinga.
Kapumzike Gakweli.
Hakika wananchi wakukosea walipokuita the people's president.
Kwani japo haukuwa rais, lakini ulipigania maisha yao kuwa rahisi.
Na mtazamaji, tuungane pamoja kuanzia sasa ili kuweza kuendelea kufuatilia kile ambacho wenzetu wamekianzisha kuanzia asubuhi ya leo, ikiwa lengo na makusudio ni kukupa matukio ya moja kwa moja katika safari ya mwisho ya mwenda zake Raila Amolo Odinga, ambapo kesho inatarajiwa ndio kwa siku ambayo atapumzishwa katika makazi yake ya milele.
Na kwa hivi sasa mtazamaji, tunafahamishwa kwamba shughuli ya kutazama mwili wa hayati Raila Odinga imeweza kukamilika nyumbani kwake huko Bondo, kaunti ya Siaya, ambako utakuweko usiku mzima hadi Jumapili kabla ya ibada ya wafu itakayofanyika katika chuo kikuu cha Jaramogi Oginga Odinga kuanzia saa 3 asubuhi.
Baada ya hayati Raila atazikwa nyumbani kwao Kang'o ka Jaramogi huko Bondo, Samgituko angali amekita kambi nyumbani kwa Raila, na sasa tuungana naye ili atueleze mengi, lakini kwa sasa hivi ni kwamba wanasubiri kuweza kuondoa mwili katika sehemu iliyokuwa kupelekwa katika boma. Kwa hiyo tuungana naye baada ya muda usio mrefu.
Lakini kwa hivi sasa hatimaye mwili wa mwenda zake Raila Amolo Odinga umefika nyumbani huko Bondo, kaunti ya Siaya, ambapo ulipokewa na familia yake wakiongozwa na mjane wake Mama Aida Odinga na wanawe Rosemary na Raila Junior, jamaa na wakazi wa eneo hilo.
Mwili huo ulisafirishwa kwa ndege ili kuokoa muda, na baada ya familia na baadhi ya viongozi kutazama mwili huo, wakazi na walipewa fursa ya kutazama mwili wa marehemu na kutoa heshima zao kabla ya mazishi ya kesho siku ya Jumapili.
Na Jamila Muhammad anasimulia mambo yalivyokuwa.
Muda mfupi baada ya saa 10 alasiri, ndege iliyokuwa imebeba mwili wa hayati Raila Amolo Odinga iliwasili nyumbani kwake katika shamba la Opoda, Bondo, kaunti ya Siaya kwa mara ya mwisho. Mwili wake ukipewa heshima na taadhima, ambapo uliondolewa kutoka kwenye ndege hiyo na wanajeshi chini ya uangalizi wa viongozi wa kidini na kusafirishwa kwa muda mfupi hadi eneo maalum lilokuwa limetengwa kwa shughuli ya kutazama mwili wa marehemu.
Mwili wake baba sasa utaletwa hapo, alafu sisi wote tutaweza kumhaga buriani.
Awali, Ilikuwa imearifiwa kwamba marehemu Raila kwanza angepelekwa hadi katika boma lake ili familia yake na jamaa wa karibu kutoa heshima zao kabla ya kuletwa hapa. Ila mipango ilibadilishwa, kwani inaarifiwa kwamba umati uliokuwa nje ya boma lake ulikuwa mkubwa mno. Na mmoja baada ya mwingine, familia yake wakiongozwa na mjane Mama Aida Odinga, binti ya Rosemary Odinga na kakake Oburu Oginga waliotazama mwili wa mwenda zake na kutoa heshima zao. Kisha alifuatia mwanawe Raila Odinga Jr. na viongozi wakuu wa chama cha ODM akiwemo gavana wa Siaya James Orengo na mwenzake wa Homa Bay Gladys Wanga pamoja na viongozi wengine. Baadaye wakazi wa kijiji hiki pia walipata fursa ya kumpa buriani mwana wao, kiongozi waliyemfahamu, kumheshimu na kumwenzi. Shughuli hii ikitarajiwa kuendelea hadi jioni hii ya Jumamosi kabla ya mazishi kuandaliwa kesho Jumapili. Maafisa usalama wakiweka kila juhudi kuhakikisha usalama unadumishwa, kwani waliojitokeza kutoa heshima zao walikuwa wengi, mara kwa mara wakipata changamoto. Shughuli za kuchimba na kujenga kaburi iliendelea katika eneo atakapozikwa mwenda zake Raila, Kang'o ka Jaramogi, kando ya alikozikwa babake Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Kabla ya hapo, ibada ya mazishi itaandaliwa katika chuo kikuu cha Jaramogi, ambapo viongozi wakuu wa hapa nchini na wa kimataifa wanatarajiwa kujumuika na familia, jamaa na wakazi wa Bondo kumpa buriani mwenda zake. Jamila Mohamed, Runinga ya Citizen.
Na mtazamaji, na hatua za mwisho za kuandaa kaburi la hayati Raila Odinga zinaendelea nyumbani kwao Kang'o ka Jaramogi huko Bondo, ambako wahandisi hivi sasa wanatayarisha eneo ambako atapumzishwa hapo kesho Jumapili.
Na matayarisho ya kaburi yalianza siku ya Alhamisi, ambapo hii leo afisa mkuu wa mamlaka ya ujenzi Morris Akech alizuru eneo hilo kukagua ujenzi na kuhakikisha kwamba kila kitu kishwari na ujenzi huo umezingatia vigezo vilivyowekwa.
Na kwa sasa wahandisi wanatengeneza sehemu ya chini ya kaburi hilo pamoja na kuimarisha kuta.
Na hayati Raila atazikwa kando ya babake hayati Jaramogi Oginga Odinga siku ya Jumapili.
Been here the whole night trying to prepare this final resting place for Baba. We are very well on course and the progress is very good. Since yesterday, of course, as you can see, yesterday by evening, we were preparing the floor down there. Now we've lifted the walling and we are now in the final stages of putting the finishes on the floor and the walls, and then we'll be done so that we are ready for tomorrow. So this is a very significant moment for us in history, because we are here to witness the construction of this very important facility that will carry Baba for the rest, what we call eternity.
Na mtazamaji, Mama Aida Odinga amewarai wananchi kuzingatia amani wakati wa shughuli za mazishi ya hayati Raila Odinga.
Na akizungumza nyumbani kwake Opoda Farm huko Bondo, Siaya, Mama Aida alishukuru kwa jumbe nyingi za rambirambi kutoka kwa watu mbalimbali humu nchini na kimataifa. Na
Mama Aida aliwarai wa Kenya kutofanya fujo wakati wa hafla ya maombolezo na mazishi, akisema kwamba mumewe marehemu Raila Odinga alikuwa mpenda amani.
None of us knew that the time had come that my dear husband, Raila Odinga, was going to leave us. But since the time has come, we have to deal with it the way it is. I just want to make a small statement concerning the situation. I know Raila was loved by his people. His family, his community, his party members, Kenyans, Africa, and even many parts of the world. The way I'm saying this is because I've received condolences messages from many parts of the world. Tomorrow I hope I'll be able to read for you. Now I want to appeal to our people. I want to appeal to our people that we must mourn Raila in peace. It is a solemn occasion. It is not an occasion of confusion. Things work better if we do it in a solemn manner. I want to appeal. I've been to many international funerals. I was in the funeral of Nelson Mandela. I was in the funeral of Winnie Mandela. I was in the funeral of President Magufuli here in Tanzania. It was a solemn occasion. It is only through the still voice that we can be able to hear and understand one another. I've lost my husband. My children have lost their father. People have lost their brothers. And many, many people. Kenyans have lost their loved one. The world have lost their loved one. With me is Mrs. Changarai, Her Excellency. You all know Mr. Changarai, the president from Zimbabwe. She's arrived in this country and she's arrived here at Opoda Farm to mourn with us. We are forever most grateful. They've been our friends. The Morgan Changarai and Raila have been close for many years. And we are happy to receive her in this village at this time. Thank you very much. You want to say something?
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm standing here with a heart full of sadness on the passing of Baba. I could not think of any place to be today than to be with Mama Ida. They are our family, and Baba and my late husband have been very close. So I mourn with people of Kenya today the loss of a great man, father of democracy. I thank you.
Na mtazamaji, tukiendelea kwamba kwa hivi sasa alikuwa tunaambiwa na Sam Gituku kwamba ni kama mita 5 hivi kutoka pale mwili ulipokuwa na kupelekwa nyumbani, na kwa hivi sasa unaona ni mwili ukiwa unashukishwa katika nyumba ya marehemu Raila Amolo Odinga. Opoda Farm amefika nyumbani, ambapo kwa mujibu wa utaratibu tuliopewa ni kwamba mwili huu utalala hapa nyumbani usiku wa leo na asubuhi kupelekwa moja kwa moja katika chuo kikuu cha Jaramogi ili kwa misa ile ya wafu.
Na misa yenyewe tumearifiwa kwamba itaanza mwendo wa saa 3 hadi saa 7. Mtazamaji, picha hizo zinakujia moja kwa moja kutoka Opoda Farm. Inamaanisha kwamba mwili tayari umeshafika nyumbani mwa hayati Raila Amolo Odinga kwa hivi sasa kutoka uwanjani, ambapo maelfu ya Wakenya kutoka eneo hilo la Bondo pia walipata nafasi na fursa ya kipekee ya kuweza kutoa heshima zao za mwisho siku hii ya leo, wakisubiri mazishi aweze kupumzishwa hapo kesho.
Na kwa sababu ya kuwa mwili ulikuwa utalala sehemu hii, ndio maana wengi wananchi walikuwa wamekongamana ama wamekutana kumfariji Raila Amolo Odinga katika eneo la nyumbani. Walipewa muda wa kutizama tena mwili sehemu nyingine mita 5 kutoka pale penye ile nyumba yake, ili shughuli ya leo jioni iwe ni ya familia peke yake na wale jamaa wa karibu, ambapo mwili utakaa ama utalala hapa usiku, alafu asubuhi shughuli ziendelee. Kwa watu wanatarajia kwamba hakutakuwa tena na heka ya watu kutaka kuona, maanake wengi wa wananchi wamepewa fursa. Kwanza ilikuwa ni Kisumu, na baadhi ambao walikuwa wameusubiri kaunti ya Siaya pale Bondo wakapata nafasi ulipotua katika uwanja ule wa ndege ndani ya shamba lile, na kwa hivi sasa itakuwa ni wakati tu wa kukaa pale, mambo mengine yaendelee ya kifamilia, mila na tamaduni.
Na kwa hivi sasa naona bado jeshi imeweza kushika doria kuhakikisha kwamba wanahakikisha kila kitu kiko shwari wakati huu. Hii ni njia mojawapo, kama unavyoona Rashid, kwa hivi sasa wanakunja ile bendera, ni kumaanisha kwamba kwa hivi sasa wanaacha familia waweze kuendelea na maombolezo.
Na bila shaka sasa hivi itakuwa ni utaratibu wa familia kuendeleza, lakini pia na imani watakuwa wako ange, ili kwa sababu wako na jukumu la kuhakikisha safari yake inakuwa salama mpaka hapo kesho. Tusikie kinachoendelea kwa sasa. Naam, Lulu, unaambiwa kama msiba ni mzito, lakini kipindi kama hichi kwa wale ndugu jamaa na marafiki, uzito wa msiba ndo watauhisi. Manake ni mtu ambaye ameingia katika nyumba yake, lakini sio katika uhai wake. Kwa hiyo utakuwa ni usiku wa kuomboleza, dua, subra na kujipa matumaini.
Wanasema msiba usikie tu kwa jirani.
Bila shaka.
Na wala sio kwako.
Wengi wameondokewa, lakini wao wameondokewa zaidi.
Na mtazamaji, kwingineko ni kwamba mwili wa aliyekuwa waziri mkuu Raila Odinga ulisafirishwa kwa ndege maalum ya kijeshi kutoka katika uwanja wa ndege wa Kisumu hadi katika uwanja wa Mamboleo na kisha baadaye hadi nyumbani kwake huko Bondo.
Naam, kwa mujibu wa kamati andalizi ya mazishi, hatua hiyo iliafikiwa ili kuzuia kutatizika na kucheleweshwa kutokana na umati mkubwa wa maelfu ya wafuasi wake waliojitokeza barabarani kusindikiza mwili.
Na kama Emmanuel To anavyotuarifu ni kwamba hatua hiyo pia ililenga kuhakikisha kwamba mazishi ya Raila yanafanyika katika muda wa saa 72 kama alivyotaka marehemu.
Mwili wake umekuwa angani muda wote wa usafiri Jumamosi. Ndege hii spesheli ya kijeshi inayojulikana kama Spartan Tactical Airlift ya jeshi la wanahewa ikitua katika uwanja wa ndege wa kimataifa wa Kisumu saa 1:20 asubuhi. Na kama ilivyokuwa tu katika uwanja wa ndege wa kimataifa wa Jomo Kenyatta Nairobi Alhamisi, ndege hiyo ilipewa saluti ya heshima ikinyunyiziwa maji kutoka pande za kushoto na kulia kama ishara ya taadhima kwake. Wakati huo wote, mwili wa Odinga ambao umekuwa chini ya ulinzi mkali ukipokelewa na maafisa wa vitengo vyote vitatu vya wanajeshi. Saa 2:40 mwili huu uking'oa nanga tena, wakati huu ndani ya ndege tofauti ya Russian M-8 inayotumika kwa uchukuzi wa kijeshi. Ndege hiyo ikitua katika uga wa Jomo Kenyatta Mamboleo dakika 7 baadaye. Ikichachawiza uwanja mzima, wafuasi sugu wa Odinga ambao wamegeuzwa waombolezaji wakiupokea kwa vifijo, nduru na vilio. Na baada ya hafla ya kuutazama mwili huo wa Raila kukamilika, helikopta hiyo ilirudi tena ikiwa chini ya ulinzi mkali wa ndege nyingine ya kuisindikiza angani. Kwa mara nyingine tena, wakazi wa Kisumu wakikosa nafasi ya kuusindikiza mwili huo hadi Bondo kwa barabara. Namna hiyo uchukuzi ikiwapiga chenga maelfu ya waombolezaji waliokuwa na hamu ya kutembea sako kwa bako na mwili huo. Mamia waliokuwa wamepiga kambi nje uwanja wa ndege wa Kisumu wakiwa wa kwanza kupigwa na butwaa. Baadhi ya waliojikakamua na kufika uwanjani eleza kutamaushwa kwao. Waandalizi wa mazishi hayo ya Raila wakisema hatua hiyo ilikusudia kuhakikisha kuwa muda wa saa 72 ambao hayati Raila Odinga alikuwa ametoa kwenye wosia kuzingatiwa kifariki unaheshimiwa. Halaiki ya watu, maelfu ya wafuasi wake kutoka kwa matabaka tofauti wakifika katika uwanja wa Mamboleo kumpa buriani ya mwisho, huku wanajeshi wakiongoza shughuli hiyo na hapo kesho kuhitimisha safari ya Raila Odinga duniani katika kaunti ya Siaya. Emmanuel To, runinga Citizen kutoka katika uga wa Jomo Kenyatta Mamboleo, kaunti ya Kisumu.
Na tukiendelea kwamba wakazi wa kaunti za Kisumu, Homa Bay, Migori, Kisii na maeneo jirani wajitokeza kwa wingi kutizama mwili wa mwenda zake Raila Amolo Odinga katika uwanja wa Mamboleo.
Naam, hata ingawa hafla hiyo ilijawa majonzi, wengi wao walifika katika uwanja huo walimsherehekea Raila Odinga kwa kushinikiza kuwepo kwa katiba mpya na demokrasia nchini.
Naam, Stephen Leto alikuwepo, hii hapa taarifa yake.
Katika uwanja wa Mamboleo leo kulikuwa na mambo. Kabla ya jua kuchomoza katika jiji la Kisumu, wenyeji walitapakaa kwenye barabara zote zinazoelekea uwanja wa Mamboleo. Na baada ya muda mchache, uwanja wa kimataifa wa Jomo Kenyatta Kisumu ulifurika furifuri. nyimbo za kumsifu Odinga zikiteka anga, huku majonzi yakigeuka kumsherehekea Odinga na michango yake kwa taifa la Kenya. Kisumu ambayo imekuwa kitovu cha siasa za Odinga na chama chake cha Chungwa, ikijitokeza kwa aina yake kumpungia mkono wa kwaheri baba Raila Amolo Odinga. Usalama ukiimarishwa, huku waombolezaji wakielekezwa sehemu ya kutizama mwili wa Odinga na sehemu ya kuondoka uwanjani. Waliofika hapa kutizama mwili wa Odinga wakiipa familia ya Odinga pole na kuahidi kufika Bondo hapo kesho. Baada ya maelfu ya wafuasi wa Odinga kutoka kaunti ya Kisumu na maeneo mengine kufika hapa katika uwanja wa Mamboleo, sasa macho yote yameelekezwa kwenye eneo bunge la Bondo, kaunti ya Siaya, ambapo safari ya mwisho ya Raila Odinga itafika kikomo kesho. Stephen Leto, runinga ya Citizen, uwanja wa Mamboleo, Kisumu.
Na mtazamaji, maelfu ya waombolezaji kutoka Kisumu na kaunti jirani walimiminika katika uwanja wa Jomo Kenyatta huko Mamboleo ili kumpa mkono wa buriani aliyekuwa waziri mkuu hayati Raila Odinga. Na baadhi yao walilemewa na majonzi, wengine wakiamua kumkumbuka na kumwaga Raila Odinga kwa nyimbo za kishujaa. Na Raila Otieno alihudhuria hafla hiyo na ametuandalia taswira ilivyokuwa katika ngome hiyo ya kisiasa ya Raila Amolo Odinga.
Ijumaa saa 12 asubuhi, halaiki ya watu ambao walikesha hapa walikuwa tayari kupokea mwili wa kinara wa Chungwa hayati Raila Odinga. Baadhi waliojipanga kando kando ya barabara ya jiji la Kisumu kwenda Kakamega wakivalia sare maalum ya maombolezo. Hata hivyo, mipango ilipobadilika na kuusafirisha mwili wa Odinga kutumia ndege, umati huu ulifululiza hadi uga wa Jomo Kenyatta huko Mamboleo. Hapa wengine walilemewa na majonzi, wengine waliamua kumsherehekea mwenge wao, kigogo wa kisiasa na jenerali aliyetoa mwelekeo kwa jamii.
Nimesikia msame lala, nimesikia huzuni. Ndio imefanya nimetoka nyumbani mapema saa 11 asubuhi. Niko kwa laini. Nimesimama masaa mawili, hata sijamfikia bado, lakini nataka nimuone tena. Leo nilale Bondo, nimsike ndio nirudi nyumbani.
Nilitoka nyumbani saa 11 kamili ili kushuhudia mwili na kupata ile mwili ya Raila imeletwa, nishuhudie kweli amekufa.
Muda mfupi kulikuwa na vurugu katika uga huo, ila maafisa wa usalama walirejesha hali ya kawaida na msururu wa kuutazama mwili ukaendelea.
Kama inabadilisha katiba ni Agwambo, inabadilisha nini Agwambo? Maandamano ni Agwambo. Hiyo ndio kwa sababu nimetoka Nairobi mpaka hapa. Tunasindikiza ya poda. Nchi kwa ina amani na hakuna sherehe nyingine itakuwa kama ya Agwambo. Nimesema leo na watu tumekubali, umejaribu.
Wakati huo jijini Kisumu kulikuwa mahame. Maduka mengi yalisalia kufungwa, huku wafanyabiashara wakiungana na waombolezaji.
Wengine walitoa machozi, huku wengine wakiimba za kishujaa. Wale waliofika hapa wakisema lazima watoe heshima zao za mwisho kwa Raila Odinga ambaye alikuwa kama baba kwa wengi. Raila Otieno, runinga ya Citizen.
Na msia mseto kutoka kwa waombolezaji, lakini tukiendelea mbele ni kwamba askofu mkuu mstaafu wa kanisa Katoliki jimbo la Kisumu Zacchaeus Okoth amemwomboleza hayati Raila Odinga kama mtu aliyekuwa mwepesi wa kusamehe na aliyeweka taifa kabla ya maslahi yake. Na
Okoth aliyekuwa miongoni mwa viongozi wa dini walioongoza maombi katika uwanja wa Jomo Kenyatta Mamboleo huko Kisumu kabla ya wananchi kuruhusiwa kuona mwili wake, Raila alisifia juhudi za Raila zilizosababisha kupatikana kwa katiba mpya, akisema kwamba mabadiliko nchini yalipatikana kupitia jasho na machozi ya Raila Amolo Odinga. Na
Mgatete Njoroge anarejelea kauli za askofu Okoth.
Chache baada ya mwili wa hayati Raila Odinga Kufika katika uwanja wa Jomo Kenyatta Mamboleo Kisumu,
vijana wote,
viongozi wa dini walikaribishwa kufungua hafla ya kutazama mwili wake kwa maombi.
Our Prime Minister was indeed many things to many people.
Mmoja kati ya wale waliotukwa jukumu hilo alikuwa askofu mkuu mstaafu jimbo la Kisumu, Zacchaeus Okoth. Kwa takriban dakika 4, Okoth alifanya maombi ambayo yaliangazia maisha ya rafikie.
Oh Lord our God.
Uhusiano wa Raila Odinga na Okoth ulikuwa wa kipekee kwa zaidi ya miaka 30. Askofu mkuu mstaafu Okoth ndiye alihusika pakubwa kumsaidia Odinga kutoroka humu nchini alipokuwa akisakwa na serikali ya Moi miaka ya 80, matukio ambayo aliyekuwa waziri mkuu aliyazungumzia mara kwa mara.
I was evacuated from here through the grace of the Catholic Church. One father, Father Marco Pio, and a Catholic nun, Sister Diane, from the United States. Early in the morning, the father was wearing a collar, and the sister was wearing white, and myself was being carried also with a collar, and my name was Father Augustine from Machakos.
Almighty God, I thank you for having given me the courage to save the life after his second detention.
Urafiki uliodhihirika tena mwaka jana wakati Raila Odinga alipomtembelea hospitalini Okoth akiugua. Hapa alirejelea historia ya namna alimuokoa akiwa amestahimili mateso, dhuluma, jela na hata kuishi mbali na familia yake. Askofu mkuu mstaafu anasema Raila alijitolea kutetea taifa na hata ikimlazimu kukatiza azma yake ili Kenya ipige hatua mbele.
He taught us forgiveness. He accepted the verdict of the Supreme Court, thus teaching us about the importance of belonging to the rule of law, shaking hands with those who are pronounced as presidents. He had the heart of forgiveness.
Kujinyima na kujituma ndiko kulimwezesha kupigania kuondolewa kwa sheria ya kuwa na chama kimoja nchini na hatimaye katiba mpya iliyowahakikishia Wakenya uhuru wa kuzungumza, ugatuzi na uhuru wa idara ya mahakama.
He dedicated his entire life to the service of the people of Kenya and beyond, and through the works of his, together with the other Kenyans, enabled the Constitution of 2010 and its attendant institution to being enacted.
Okoth anasema juhudi za Raila Odinga kubadili hali hazikuwa tu kwa kupigania haki barabarani, bali hata alipopata fursa ya kuwa waziri na waziri mkuu, alitumia muda wake kubadilisha miundo msingi nchini.
We thank you, oh Lord God, for insight you gave Raila to design by passing our cities, many highways and roads serving our beautiful country Kenya.
Akimkumbuka kama aliyeenzi maisha ya kila Mkenya na kupenda ukweli, haki, usawa, askofu mkuu mstaafu Okoth ameiomba serikali kuhakikisha inalinda maslahi ya kila Mkenya kama njia ya kumkumbuka Raila Amolo Odinga na mchango wake kwa taifa zima.
Sasa tutaruhusu wananchi walio upande ule.
Gatete Njoroge, runinga ya Citizen.
Na kwingineko, waombolezaji kutoka jamii mbalimbali walifariji familia ya hayati Raila Odinga nyumbani kwake katika shamba la Opoda, Bondo, kaunti ya Siaya. Jamii hizo ambazo ziliongozwa na baraza la wazee na viongozi wa kisiasa zilisafirisha fahali na zawadi zingine moja kwa moja.
Naam, zilifanya hivyo kama ishara ya heshima na shukrani kwa aliyekuwa waziri mkuu Raila Odinga, kama anavyoripoti Seth Olale.
Gavana wa Trans Nzoia aliambatana na wazee kutoka jamii ya Wabukusu kumwomboleza aliyekuwa waziri mkuu Raila Odinga nyumbani kwake Opoda, Bondo, kaunti ya Siaya.
Kano nyoleyo Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Kano nyoleyo Martin Shikuku. Kombe yefwenio. Ifwadilio. Walio naliheja tawe lakini lifwadilio.
Kundi hilo lililopokelewa na nduguye marehemu Raila Oburu Odinga liliwasilisha fahali kama ishara ya shukrani za kitamaduni kwa hayati Raila.
The king is dead, but long live the king. Mkaza kwa kukula. Asandi. Welaka kaba. Asandi. Safari ya Raila. Ebenda hii. Bandu wakaloma na tawe.
Jamii hiyo ya Wabukusu vile iliwakilishwa na kinara wa chama cha DAPK Eugene Wamalwa, ambaye pia aliwasili kwa mbwembwe na kufikisha fahali wake nyumbani kwa mwenda zake Raila.
Siku kama hii Raila alikuja paka kwetu kule Kitale, akaja na Ndume, akaja na viongozi wote wa Nyanza kuomboleza nasi.
Ni tukio ambalo pia lilifuatwa na gavana wa Busia Paul Otuoma, ambaye pia aliwasilisha fahali 4 kwa familia ya marehemu Raila Odinga. Kutoka kaunti ya Vihiga, seneta wa kaunti hiyo Godfrey Osotsi aliandamana na wazee kutoka kaunti hiyo kuipa familia ya Odinga pole kama ilivyo desturi ya jamii ya Waluya. Aidha, jamii ya Wakalenjin ikiwakilishwa na magavana Stephen Sang wa Nandi, Benjamin Cheboi wa Baringo na Wesley Rotich kutoka Elgeyo Marakwet ilisafirisha jumla ya ng'ombe dume 80 kuashiria miaka 80 hayati Raila Odinga aliishi. Waombolezaji zaidi unatarajiwa kufika katika shamba la Opoda katika eneo la Bondo kufariji familia kwa ishara ya heshima kwa mwenda zake Raila Amolo Odinga. Seth Olale, runinga ya Citizen katika kaunti ya Kisumu.
Na huo ndio upendo wa dhati.
Na mwasema palipotoka hisani, pamerudi hisani.
Kabisa.
Na shamba la Opoda huko Bondo, nyumbani kwa hayati Raila Amolo Odinga, imeshuhudia wageni kutoka pembe tofauti za nchi waliofika kuomboleza kifo cha Odinga. Na
viongozi wa kisiasa walikuwa miongoni mwa waliofika kuifariji familia ya Odinga.
Na wote wakimtaja mwenda zake kama kiongozi ambaye siku zote alipigania maslahi ya wananchi.
Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, yeye ni mjukuu wa 13 wanabongo Mumia. So leo nimeongoza kikosi cha wazee wa The Wanga Kingdom na pia elders wa Kakamega, na tumeleta ng'ombe 15 kama ishara ya kusherekea shujaa wetu ambaye ni Raila Amolo Odinga.